got to learn. We all can learn together. PJ says we should have learned a long time ago. Row the boat, folks. Minnesota 31, Penn State 26. The Gophers are 9-0 for the first time since 1904 when they played a couple high school teams. Did you see those scores on today's game? They showed the lineup of the Minnesota wins in 1904. They beat a couple high school teams. One score was 142-0. One was 116-0. They only gave up points to one team. They beat Nebraska 60-12, and the rest were shutouts. Football has changed slightly since then. Anyway, MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love, 1904 all the way up to 2019. Please like, comment, share the videos, and subscribe. And if you're watching us maybe for a first time or you checked out the videos a few times, dive in first. We believe that we will make you a believer in our content delivery each and every day, all year, 24/7, 365 on college football, and this was a huge one. If you love college football, you got to love this story, unless, of course, you root for Iowa, Wisconsin, or somebody else in the Big Ten Western Division, or, of course, Penn State. PJ Fleck, many consider him the car salesman of college football, that they just can't believe that enthusiasm, that energy, that positive vibe is genuine. But everybody who meets the guy, talks to the guy. We had a Minnesota guest on this week, Daniel House of Gopher Hole. He said he interviews PJ Fleck on a fairly regular basis, has talked to him. We've had other Minnesota writers in the past say, this guy's genuine. They said it during the broadcast today, Sean McDonough and Todd Blackledge, that they had never met him before. They are convinced this is PJ Fleck all the time. The Big Ten Network had their version of Hard Knocks. I believe it's called The Journey. And it was captivating to watch PJ Fleck on a daily basis. Get up at 4:30 in the morning, right out of the gate. He's got the vibe and the energy and the enthusiasm and the charisma, and it just doesn't stop all day. And he is building a football program. He did it at Western Michigan. One of his funny stories is talking about his current wife pursuing him and him just not believing, what would this woman want to do with me? I'm a 1-11 coach at Western Michigan. A couple of years later, he's sending them to the Cotton Bowl undefeated at 13-0. But let's get to the here and now with Minnesota football in defeating Penn State. Biggest win in program history, going back to, let's say, they tied for a Big Ten championship with Indiana in 1967. They are winning games like this for the first time since 1961 when they won the Big Ten outright. They won their last national championship in 1960. They beat a top 10 team, a top 5 team, top 5 team for the first time since 1999 at Penn State. LeVar Arrington, remember that? Last second field goal, 23-20. And beating Michigan, number 1 ranked Michigan in 1977. That's the last time Minnesota beat anyone of this ranking at home as number 4 Penn State goes down. All right, Tanner Morgan at quarterback is unlike any Minnesota quarterback we've seen in forever. What Minnesota quarterback has made it to the NFL? I remember Mike Hohensee getting a cup of coffee in the NFL going back to the early 80s. I don't remember anybody since then. Ricky Foggy was a runner. Mitch Leidner was decent, but man, Tanner Morgan, 21 of 22 against Purdue for 396 in this game against Penn State. Against Penn State, not Purdue, against Penn State, who I still believe to be a top 10 to 15 defense in the nation. They had no answers. They stopped the run, but Morgan burned them. They dared Tanner Morgan to make the throws, and he did. 18 of 20, 21 touchdowns now, 4 interceptions on the season, a 21-4 touchdown to interception ratio. Go year by year through College Football Reference. You will not find a Minnesota quarterback that separated the TDs and the interceptions anywhere close to this stat line. It's remarkable what he's doing. Since he took over the job from Zach Annexstad in November of last year when Minnesota went on a tear after they fired defensive coordinator Rob Smith and Joe Rossi took over, and they beat Purdue 41-10, Wisconsin 37-15, won a bowl game over Georgia Tech, and they keep rolling on through now here in 2019. They have, I don't want to throw around the term elite. I will say one of the best wide receiver cores in the Big Ten. Ohio State, Michigan. That's the short list with Minnesota. Tyler Johnson has been the star since he stepped on campus. 7 catches, 104 yards, had a tremendous one-handed catch over a defender in which Tanner Morgan just laced it right in there, right over the top, right down the right sideline. Rashad Bateman had an amazing game, 7 catches for 203. And also Chris Autumn-Bell. He was complaining at one point, and not really complain, just saying we've got so much talent on this roster. The coaches had said to me when I said, I want more targets, I want more catches, they said, make plays. Make plays. Just make plays. We'll get you the football. And he did early in this game to put Minnesota up at 14-7, made a tremendous play. And this is Minnesota execution. This is when you know a football team is this good, even when the competition was not great. Okay? They are second in the nation to Wake Forest in fewest penalties. They are third in the nation in time of possession because that's what PJ Fleck still preaches. Unlike most coaches in this day and age, he still believes in Jim Tressel ball. Time of possession matters. Not that you can't be aggressive within that approach, but he still teaches that approach. And Minnesota top 3 in the nation in time of possession and third down conversion rate, 50%. That's number 3 in the country. And you saw the execution on the Chris Autumn-Bell touchdown in which the offensive lineman, in a perfectly executed screen to the right side, in which he cut under the 3 offensive linemen that went out into the opponent's backfield because they threw it just behind the line of scrimmage, so it was legal, perfectly blocked. He raced across the middle, caught the ball in stride, and Penn State couldn't catch up to him, and he scores the touchdown. So it's a tremendous wide receiver core. They've got the 3 running back monster that leads the nation in total rushing yardage between the 3 of them. And Rodney Smith, who has taken over as the all-purpose yardage leader in Minnesota history. Think Lawrence Maroney, think Marion Barber, Darrell Thompson. And Rodney Smith is the all-time all-purpose leader in Minnesota rushing and receiving all-purpose yardage, and he's number 2 now in rushing, even though Penn State keyed on him, so he only gained 51 yards in this game. You also have Shannon Brooks. He's the speedster. He's been on campus for a long time, along with Rodney Smith, and is a top 10 all-time Minnesota rusher. And, of course, newer to the distribution of the football out of the backfield is Mo Ibrahim, who had a nice day as well, although, again, Penn State focused on the run. Tanner Morgan made them pay, and they did not have answers, and admitted after the game, when you talked to the Penn State defense, they said, yeah, we didn't know where they were, what was going on, and they really were one step ahead of us. So credit PJ Fleck and Joe Rossi in particular. Defensive side of the ball for this football team that we need to get more and more familiar with. Antoine Winfield, the son of the Antoine Winfield of Ohio State fame, one of the great defensive backs you're ever going to see in the history of college football. Seriously, Antoine Winfield. And his son is in the same mold. He predicted today that he would intercept 2 passes. Now, this is difficult for a defensive back to do. A running back can say, I'm going to gain 100 yards today because he knows he's going to get 20 or 25 carries. But for a DB to say, I'm going to pick off 2 passes to take the national lead in interceptions with 7 and go out and do it, and those to be meaningful interceptions. And then he also supports the run like his dad did. One of the tougher defensive backs, one of the surest tacklers you will ever see, his pops. And he's playing the same way. He's got 42 solo tackles to lead the team. Had 9 today. 11 total tackles for Antoine Winfield and the 2 picks that were meaningful interceptions down near the goal line. Jordan Howden had the interception that saved the game when Sean Clifford was pressured and did not deliver a good football. It was off target regardless of where it was going to. It was between 2 receivers. And Benjamin St. Just. This kid is a long corner, and he is tough to separate from. He had a tremendous game as well. So the Minnesota defensive backfield in particular played well. The entire defense, again, was ready and up for the challenge. So this is a team that is now needing to be taken seriously by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee and by the rest of us. They have a date at Iowa. Going to be extremely difficult to defeat the Hawkeyes, who have been taken out of the championship race by Wisconsin today, but they have to play at Iowa. Northwestern will not be. I know it appears on paper to be an easy game. I don't believe it will be. Pat Fitzgerald will relish knocking off a contender. And then to close out the regular season, if Minnesota should stumble against one of those two teams, they will be playing Wisconsin for the Big Ten Western Division at home on the final week of the regular season, and then a Big Ten championship game appearance. And if anybody out there, including the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, does not see this team as worthy of a college football playoff appearance, if they win the Big Ten with only one loss, they don't have to go undefeated in my book. Clemson would be in, the SEC champion would be in, the Big Ten champion has to be in with one loss. I don't care who it is, and this Minnesota team showed us something today. All right, we'll focus on Penn State football. Again, the defense is much better than this. I do not believe that Penn State played a good game today. I don't know that Minnesota is better than Penn State. Credit them with the win. They should be ranked higher and will be ranked higher in the top 25 that actually makes sense, released tomorrow or Monday. But Penn State just didn't show up in this one early, made a late rally to make it close, and had the ball thrown in the end zone to try to win the game. They came into the game giving up just 68 yards per game on the ground, number one statistic in the Big Ten. They faced the number 3 rushing team, and they held them in check. But again, Tanner Morgan, 18 of 20. But this is still a really good defense with Micah Parsons, Yetur Gross-Matos, Jan Johnson's one of the best linebackers in the Big Ten. Tariq Castro-Fields, the secondary, did not have a good game, but still really good players back there. Cam Brown's a tremendous linebacker. And so they can play. Penn State can play, and they still have their season in front of them. But Sean Clifford has got to play better. He's been up and down the entire season. He's just a baby. But if Penn State wants to get back to a Big Ten championship game for the first time since 2016, they go to Columbus in 2 weeks after they play Indiana. Let's not forget the game against Indiana. A 7-2 Hoosiers squad awaits Penn State in Happy Valley. So they've got to take care of business before they go to Columbus. And, of course, the scrimmage against Rutgers to close out the season. KJ Hamler, a stud. Proved it again today, 7 catches for 119. What impresses me about Hamler, I know that he's got blazing speed, and that's fun to watch. But he makes catches in traffic, and not necessarily just traffic, but when he's got a defender draped on him, he will not allow the ball to be jarred loose. You see this constantly with wide receivers not being able to hang on to the football because they've got somebody draped on them, tugging at the ball. He does. He did it time and time again today. Pat Freiermuth is a elite tight end in college football. We'll see him in the pros. He had 7 catches for 101, and I was impressed with him as well. The Penn State backfield is tremendous as well. Noah Cain has been the guy, has separated himself as the guy, the running back for Penn State, but he was unavailable in this game. That obviously hurt. But Journey Brown capably stepped in with 14 carries for $124. His quickness in the hole is tremendous. Then he bursts out into the secondary and is difficult to catch. Penn State must play on top of its game. And again, Sean Clifford cannot make he had 3 to 5 mistakes today that really cost them in 43 pass attempts. He's just a little bit too inconsistent, but he has shown us that he definitely has the arm strength and the arm talent to get it done. Your thoughts on Penn State and Minnesota? Maybe they rematch in Indianapolis, although this performance would lead us to believe that Penn State cannot beat Ohio State in Columbus, but I've got to see that game in 2 weeks, of course, the marquee matchup in the Big Ten Eastern Division. Like, comment, share the videos, and subscribe if you want us to continue to dive into college football each and every day right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.